On April 16th of 2012, police entered a home in Michigan and uncovered an absolutely gruesome scene with one person dead and two others severely injured. But when it was later revealed who did this and why, it would be one of the worst betrayals ever. This is the case of Tucker Cipriano. Hello, friend, and welcome to High Time Crime. My name's Joel, and on here I specialize in true crime and also pretending to be a psychic. I see the future, and there's a lot of mayonnaise. But anyway, today we're going over the case of Tucker Cipriano, an evil young man who targeted his entire family for the pettiest reason you could possibly think of. For our story, we're heading to Farmington Hills, Michigan. Farmington Hills is a wealthy suburb just outside of Detroit. It has a population of around 83,000 people and is overall a very nice place to live if you can afford to do so. Generally, there's very little crime and it's pretty safe. But if you ever happen to find yourself here, there's no shortage of fun things to do in the area. You can visit the Woodland Hills Nature Park, filled with beautiful natural scenery and wildlife. You could learn how to prepare delicious meals at Experience Cooking. You could bowl the perfect game at Perfect Game Bowling Alley. You could even find yourself traversing through a display at Marvin's Marvelous Mechanical Museum, which features a magnificent array of animatronic dummies and mechanical games. Just make sure to bring some coins because you're gonna need them. But unfortunately, despite how fun all of those activities sound, not one of them is the reason as to why we're in Farmington Hills today. Tucker Robert Cipriano was born on April 5th of 1993 in Michigan. As a young child, he was abandoned by his mother and adopted by a very loving couple known as Robert and Rose Cipriano. Robert was a public school administrator, while Rose was a fitness instructor and frequent swimmer. By the early 2010s, the entire Cipriano family consisted of Robert and Rose, the parents, Tucker, the oldest boy at 19, Sal and Tanner, who were twins aged 17, and the youngest daughter, Isabella, who was 8 years old and the only girl among the children. Now, growing up, Tucker Cipriano experienced a lot of difficulties when it came to his behavior. At an early age, he was diagnosed with both ADHD and an undisclosed learning disability. And because of this, his mother, Rose, and his father, Robert, did everything they could to help him. From second grade onward, Rose drove him to a place in Ann Arbor where he received treatment for his problems, while Robert worked hard to provide for not only Tucker, but the entire family with a stable life. By all accounts, Robert was an extraordinarily dedicated father and husband. But despite this loving environment, Tucker grew up to be a troubled young man and felt resentment towards his family, and particularly his younger brothers. Much of this boiled down to an inferiority complex. While Tucker was about average height, his brothers were significantly taller. And while he had difficulty in school and experienced issues, his brothers Tanner and Sal were star athletes and academically successful. Tucker did have a lot of love for his younger sister Isabella, though, and this was quite apparent to everyone. But by high school, Tucker's mental health really started to take a turn for the worse, and nothing and no one really became sacred to him anymore. Tucker had gotten into harmful substances and alcohol, and was addicted to something really dangerous known as spice. For those that don't know or remember, this was a product that used to be sold over the counter. It was oftentimes advertised as a synthetic version of the good green, and you could find it in any convenience store or gas station. That was, of course, until people that took it began to engage in very extreme and sometimes violent behavior. After that, the government outlawed it, and it hasn't been available since, with the exception of illegal pathways. Anyway, Tucker soon became addicted to this horrible stuff, and by 2012, he had gotten arrested, kicked out of his parents' house, and was now living on the street. And by the way, it's not as if his parents didn't try to help him, because they did. They tried getting him therapy and rehab, and his mom even went as far as to take classes to understand her son's affliction. But before long, it just wasn't enough. Tucker had become too unpredictable and dangerous, and he needed to be kept away from the others. But even while homeless, Tucker still managed to get by somehow. In fact, he even acquired some friends that were equally as troubled as he was. One of these was a young man who we'll call Brad. Brad was Tucker's best friend and someone he had known since 6th grade. He too was homeless with a penchant for illegal substances and much less reluctance to engage in criminal behavior than the average person. During the last week of March 2012, Tucker and Brad met a 20-year-old man by the name of Mitchell Young, who, although employed, was homeless living in his truck. Mitchell had previously lived with his mother, but had been kicked out after not taking the steps required to go to college. He was also an avid user of the same product that Tucker and Brad liked to use. So with all that being said, it's pretty fair to say that these three young men had a lot in common. Anyway, before long, a discussion ensued between the three of them about breaking into Tucker's parents' house. The motive for this was to acquire what Tucker imagined was around $3,000, which the three of them would evenly split at $1,000 each. With this money, they would then invest into the stock market and buy valuable assets. Just kidding, they were going to spend it on bad habits. So when nighttime rolled around on April 15th of 2012, Tucker, Brad, and Mitchell all hopped into Mitchell's pickup truck and drove to Tucker's parents' house. When they got there, Tucker and Brad exited the vehicle, creeped up to the house, and with Brad's help, Tucker climbed in through the garage window. Next, Tucker broke into his father, Robert's car and found a bank card. Then, after obtaining it, Tucker left the garage, returned to the vehicle, and then the three criminals drove off looking for an ATM. The first ATM they drove to failed to allow them to take any money out. But even so, they were still able to buy some spice and pay for their gas. So once they accomplished that, they then proceeded to smoke the spice and begin their return to Tucker's parents' house in order to obtain some more valuable items. Upon returning to the house, they broke in once again. However, this time, all they found was a gift card. So after that, they left again, sped away in their pickup truck, and went to a mobile gas station to see how much money was on the card. As it turns out, there was only a measly $3 left. Disappointed about this, Tucker and Mitchell's plans immediately became far more sinister. Now they planned not only to break in, but to murder Tucker's entire family. So once Tucker and Mitchell had finished committing such a terrible atrocity, they would then take as much money and valuables as they could, steal the family's cars, and escape to either Tennessee or Mexico. Evidently, Tucker was already in violation of his probation even before breaking in the first time. It's not clear what the previous offense was, but if he was caught now, he would be sent to prison either way. So maybe that played a role in his absurd, deranged mindset. Who knows? But anyway, according to Brad, after overhearing this insane discussion about murder ensue, he told Tucker and Mitchell to drop him off at a friend's house in Keego Harbor. About 10 minutes later, that's exactly what they did. They drove to Keego Harbor and dropped Brad off. And the next time that he would see Tucker, well, let's just say things would be a lot different. Anyway, after they dropped Brad off, Tucker and Mitchell drove back to Tucker's family's house in Farmington Hills. The time was now 2 a.m. on the 16th, and upon their third and final trip to the house, chaos was about to ensue. So first, the pair exited the vehicle, and once again, Tucker broke in through the garage window. Next, he opened the garage door from inside to allow Mitchell to enter as well. After that, he grabbed a baseball bat from somewhere inside the garage. Then Tucker and Mitchell snuck into the house through the door that led from inside the garage to the home. However, within a matter of time after breaking into the house, the Cipriano family's dog began attacking Tucker and biting him on the forearm. And at the same time as this was happening, Robert Cipriano, who had been sleeping in his bed, woke up from all of the commotion. He then went downstairs to confront the intruders in his boxers. By this point, Tucker and Mitchell had now made their way into the kitchen. Evidently, when Robert saw the intruders, he ordered them to get out of the house, but they refused. Then quickly, a struggle ensued as Tucker held Robert down, while Mitchell struck him multiple times with the baseball bat. Meanwhile, Rose Cipriano, Tucker's mom, had soon joined in the fight and was now attempting to help her husband. However, Mitchell struck her with the baseball bat too and ran after her into the living room before ultimately injuring her severely. After that, Tucker's 8-year-old sister, Isabella, came down the stairs and tried to stop the home invasion. She was holding a metal softball bat and trying to save her parents. But as valiant as this attempt was, Tucker quickly overpowered her and took the weapon from her. After which, Isabella began crying and shouting at Tucker, "I thought you loved me." To which he replied, "I do," and then proceeded to usher her back upstairs to safety. Then, while in her room, Tucker repeatedly pleaded with Isabella to not get involved again. Afterwards, Tucker left Isabella's room and went into his brother Sal's room on the same floor. Here, he caught Sal trying to take a BB gun out of its case, and immediately the two of them then got into a lengthy physical altercation. Before long, the BB gun had broken, and the struggle between the two brothers had continued all the way into the kitchen downstairs. After some time, Tucker had successfully struck Sal multiple times with the bat and left him lying on the floor. From that point forward, Sal was permanently injured. Meanwhile, in his bedroom on the first floor, Tanner Cipriano, Tucker's other brother, was hiding in a closet calling 911. But naturally, he would be the next target.
What city are you in?
By this point, Robert was dead, Rose was badly injured, Sal was incapacitated, and the family dog had even gotten hurt as well. But once Tucker and Mitchell had finished dealing with the rest of the family, Tucker alerted Mitchell there was still one brother left in the house untouched. Now, it's important to note that during the time all of this was happening, it was really dark inside of the house. So when Tucker and Mitchell soon began searching for Tanner everywhere they could think to look, they simply weren't able to find him. While they were still looking, though, police arrived outside and Tucker caught sight of the flashing lights. Right away, he ran out of the house through the back door and into Mitchell's truck. Meanwhile, Mitchell was left behind in the family's home. It's not clear exactly when Mitchell had figured out the police had arrived, but when they got there, Isabella was the one who let them in. After that, police stormed upstairs, found Mitchell, and arrested him. As for Tucker, he had soon driven Mitchell's truck all the way to Kego Harbor and reunited with Brad. The two of them were now at a friend's house, and the moment Tucker entered the home soaked in blood, Brad worked on finding him a change of clothes. Before long, Tucker was then wearing a fresh set of clothes, but his priorities clearly still weren't in order. Despite the plan originally being that he would escape to either Tennessee or Mexico, he chose to stay at the house and spend several more hours using his favorite substance. Evidently, there were several other people at the house, and they did it with him. But within a matter of hours, 10 a.m. had rolled around, and police pulled up to the residence and arrested Tucker Cipriano. The carnage and mayhem of that terrible morning was finally over. However, the consequences of what he and Mitchell had done were going to last forever. The end result of this case was the tragic death of Robert Cipriano, a loving father, and the permanent disfigurement of Sal Cipriano, a promising athlete and young man. Sal's injuries were so bad that he was forced to be in a wheelchair and now needs daily assistance. He's made significant improvement since the attack first happened, but the process hasn't been easy in the slightest. Sal's mother, Rose Cipriano, was also in critical condition for a period of time and is likewise still dealing with issues to this day. As for what happened to the family's dog, it's unclear. But when their respective trials happened, the sentencing for Mitchell Young and Tucker Cipriano was as follows. Mitchell was sentenced to life in prison, while Tucker was also sentenced to life in prison. Meanwhile, Brad, who had helped the pair break in the night of the murder, was arrested but given an immunity deal for his testimony. Because of this, he managed to avoid spending any time in prison. This case is a sad example of the harmful effects of addiction, trauma, and hatred. We'll never know what Tucker would have been like had it not been for these factors. But we do know one thing, and that's the fact that none of these personal issues are an excuse for committing murder. The Ciprianos were a good, loving family and didn't deserve what happened to them in the slightest. They were the ones who adopted and raised Tucker out of the goodness of their hearts, and they were the ones who did everything they could to try to save him from himself. But in the end, it simply wasn't enough. Some people are just too far gone. Luckily, though, the Ciprianos are resilient. Nowadays, they're continuing to make progress in their respective struggles. Isabella has since graduated high school. Tanner has grown up to be a good young man. Rose has made an impressive physical recovery, and Sal is working his way back to being able to talk again after already regaining the ability to walk and even run. Additionally, the Ciprianos now have a yearly fundraiser in the form of a 5K run known as the Cipriano Classic. The proceeds go towards the Cipriano Family Trust for their medical bills and other expenses. It's a nice way of bringing the community together and reminding people that it's possible to overcome bad things that have happened to you, which is honestly a message that I think we could use more of in today's world. The Cipriano Classic also helps to memorialize Robert Cipriano who was a beloved figure of the community and dearly missed by many people. Rest in peace to Robert, and good luck to the rest of the Cipriano family on their recovery. But anyways, thank you for watching this episode of High Time Crime. If true crime is your thing, then please subscribe and hit the like button because that's all we do. Recently, I've started an all-exclusive Patreon, and here you're given the choice of 3 tiers. The last one allows for a Patreon-only video that's uncensored. The 3rd tier and the 2nd tier allow you to have your name put at the end of each High Time Crime video. This is just in case you want to support me a little further. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care, friend.